How you doing? My name is Chris. Welcome to my shop. These guys keep bugging me on Facebook. Keep listening. You'll hear bing, bing. Anyway, I've just got a couple things for you today. I was asked some questions about finishing, so I'm just going to answer those very quickly. Don't worry, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. And I just had a couple other things that I thought I might pass along that might help you in your shop. Maybe they won't. Who knows? I guess we'll find out coming up next. Okay, let's start with this. I had a question regarding varnish, like a polyurethane, things of that nature, or maybe you mix and make your own homemade varnish. And the question was, is there a way for me to get a flatter finish? Let's say I went out and bought a semi-gloss, maybe even a Saturn polyurethane, for instance, and I made a varnish out of it at home. Is there a way that I can make that even flatter than perhaps that semi-gloss? And the answer is yes. And let me show you how. I made up this varnish a little earlier, and I'm going to bring the camera in so you can take a look at what I'm holding here. Hold on a sec. All right, what you're seeing is the semi-gloss varnish that I mixed up a while ago. If you want to make this a very flat varnish, you're going to notice a little, see the sediment here at the bottom of the jar? This is all additives or flatteners that they use, because in case you didn't know it, all polyurethane comes in a high gloss finish originally. They have to add these flatteners to make it a semi-gloss, so they add more flatteners to make it a satin. So what you would do if you wanted to make this a flatter finish than even a semi-gloss or even the Saturn, if you really wanted to go super flat with it, is you have to let it sit until you see that sediment form. And then you simply take off the cap and pour off as much of this liquid that's on top, leaving as many of those flatteners behind as you can. And then, yes, you can turn a semi-gloss into a satin and a satin into an even flatter finish than that. But polyurethane, when you buy it in a high gloss form, there are none of those flatteners, so there's no way to dull it. But in case you wanted to make a flat or a satin out of a semi-gloss, the answer is yes, my friend, you can. That's the way you need to do it. Let that sediment sit, pour off the top part, then mix it up, and you're going to have something less than a semi-gloss finish. And the second question I had to do with, I'll just read the question. I'm curious to know, because I was told that polyurethane, when you use it on wood, that you don't need to sand it. Well, I know they make a polyurethane formula that they use for floors that's not intended to be sanded, or necessarily opinionated wise, you don't have to sand it. My opinion on that greatly differs. For floors, maybe that works. For furniture or wood projects, my answer is yes. You need to sand between coats. And I'll tell you why. Because my sanding process, especially when I'm doing staining, I only sand up to like 180. And then I'll put a stain down after I use a pre-color conditioner. And that's just because if you go higher than 180, at least in my opinion, you start burnishing the wood, and the wood doesn't absorb the stain as well. So here's my thinking on this. What you do is you finish your wood to 180, or if you're not going to stain it, maybe you want to go up to 220. Okay? A lot of people will sand up to 600. I don't think that's necessary, and I'll tell you why, especially if you're using a polyurethane. Sand up to 220 if you're not staining, 180 if you are. When you apply your finish, you apply a good first coat. Give that coat a sanding with 220, 400, 600 if you'd like. Put the second coat on, go over again with 600. See, what you end up doing, it's a process known as finishing the finish. It doesn't matter how rough the wood really is underneath it. If you're looking for a smooth surface, then you need to finish the finish. So the answer to your question is, at least in my opinion, if you're going to use polyurethane or any type of varnish on a wood project or furniture or whatever the case may be, yes, you should sand it. The only coat that you don't sand is your final coat, which is going to be most likely a very thin coat that will smooth out very nice because you've done the initial sanding to begin with. So there you go. Okay, here's the second thing I wanted to show you today. And if you have a pair of these, then you don't need this. But with most things in my shop, I tend to misplace them, and I couldn't find these for the life of me. And then I remembered how I used to do this, and I said, you know what, I'll go ahead and share that with some people. Maybe they'll find it useful. I don't know. All I did is I took a piece of plywood, as you can tell, and I marked out a 15-degree angle on it. I went to the bandsaw, cut the 15-degree angle out, okay? Then I took a ruler and I measured the gaps here at different increments. This is 1 inch, obviously, 3/4, half, and 1/4 inch. And what this is basically a thicknessing gauge. I was in the middle of resawing some wood, and I wanted to get it down to 3/4 of an inch to use as a final piece. Now, when I resaw wood and I want the final dimension as far as thickness goes at 3/4, I always mill it to 1 inch. And so I always take the board, and what I would do is I slide it in here until I get it down to exactly 3/4 of an inch. Now, if I've done this correctly, you'll see that this is 3/4 inch plywood I'm working with here. If you slide this in here like this, you'll see it stops right at 3/4 of an inch. It gives me a scale to bring things down to. I already had one board finished at 3/4 of an inch. I was trying to mill down another one. And so what I did is I took that board and moved it in here, and it started out at an inch, planed it some more, planed it some more, planed it some more. When I got there, I knew I had 3/4 of an inch and I had 2 equal pieces as far as thickness goes. It's just a quick and simple way to measure thickness on material. If you happen to do a lot of resawing of yourself and then you're planing boards down to a certain thickness, you can always create a little V in a board with careful measurements using a ruler. Just measure the gap, slide your board in until you get to the point that you want, and then you're good to go. Just thought I'd pass that along. Okay, this last tip I want to show you. Some turners are going to probably find this interesting if they don't already know it. Or if, just say you're trying to make a perfect octagon. Now, obviously, you have to start out with a perfectly square piece of wood. This one isn't exactly square. It's roughly 1 inch and 5/8 by 1 inch 5/8. But if you want to make, when you're turning, you're going to put this on a lathe. It's nice to knock these edges off before you actually put it on the lathe. So the question is, how can you do that and do it uniformly all the way around it so that you're not taking off more of one corner than you're doing on the other corner? And the answer is simple. If you have a table saw, set your blade to 45 degrees. Take your stock that you want to have the ends cut off on and lay it right next to the blade. Grab your fence and bring the fence right into the edge of that board the way it is right there. Lock your fence down, pull it out, run it through the saw. Let me show you. There you go, an octagon. And it's just that easy using that simple trick. Put your blade to 45, put your piece in there, bring your fence up to it, run it through, and you're good to go. Okay, so there you go. A couple finishing things and a couple quick tips that maybe you can use, maybe you can't. I don't know. That's up to you, but I hope I passed something along to you today that will help you out one way or another. You guys take care. Get out in your shops, go make that first cut, and get something done. I'll see you.